Today we're going to start to work on the Procreate Cornucopia, and I'm really excited to jump into painting this. I'm excited to show you how we can work with some of the different elements of a piece, preserve them so that we can potentially use them on other pieces in the future, and really build something beautiful. So let's go ahead and jump right down to the iPad and get started. Let me see if I can move the camera out of the way. We're just going to jostle the camera for just a moment. So what you see on my iPad right now is the studio edition of the Cornucopia file that is available at shellyparkerart.com. I'm going to go ahead and lock this because when you get yours, this is how yours will look. So at shellyparkerart.com, I have available for you just the basket for free. So if you would just like to paint along with the basket, you can certainly download that file at no charge. The Studio Edition that you see on my iPad here contains all of the elements that you see, and you also get the color swatch that I've built for you, which is just a nice little shortcut. At using the color swatches is a handy tool to use within Procreate. So those are provided for you in the Studio Edition file. So feel free to grab either of those so that you can paint along. I will note as we get started that the pumpkin that you see here is the exact same pumpkin that we painted in the Pumpkin Procreate class here on the channel. And this fall leaf, this particular one, is also the leaf that we have already painted. Both of these files are available individually at shellyparkerart.com. So if you wanted to grab the cornucopia and the leaf and pumpkin files, you can certainly have a great start to making your cornucopia. You will see that the sizes are not specifically what we will end up using at the end. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how all of that comes together as we go forward. Just a little side note, I'm going to be basically using the two free brushes that are also available at Shelly Parker Art. So I'll have all of those links down here in the description for you. So, grab those if you like. They're absolutely my favorite brushes. And so I've made them available for free for you. So let's jump in and get started. I think before we start, I'll go ahead and show you one of my finished pieces. What we end up with in this class won't be exactly the same, but this just gives you an idea of what we're making and where we're headed. One of the things that I want to point out here is the color variation. So that the highlight here at the top of the basket, and then allowing the basket weave to get a little bit darker as it goes down to the bottom. A lot of times in my art, whether it's an acrylic painting or a digital art piece, many times I have my light source coming from the top right. That's just what's most natural to me, I guess. I do it all the time. But it's just a nice thing to keep in mind, and building in that shadow really helps to bring the depth of the piece together. So let's go ahead and go back to the library and back to our full piece here. And I think that the first thing that I'm going to do is just to go ahead and turn off all of the elements that we're not going to be using right now. So I'm going to tap the layers button, the layers tab here, and just uncheck all of the layers that we're not going to use. Also, I'm going to go ahead and increase the size of the cornucopia basket just a little bit. Let's see if that light helps us a little. So to do that, I need to unlock the layer. In the Layers tab, you can see all of these have padlocks beside them. I do that on purpose to try to keep myself from being on the wrong layer. So to unlock it, I'm just going to swipe to the left and tap Unlock. Now if I choose this transformation tool, the little arrow in the top left, I can drag the top right corner out just to increase the size of the basket. We can always adjust this later, so I'm not worried at all about having it just the perfect size. I just want to make it a little bit bigger to make it a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and do a color fill. Oops, I undid my resize. So let me go ahead and show you that just so that you can see that. I accidentally two-finger tapped and undid the resize that we just worked on. So I can just click the redo button to make it big again. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this as our reference layer so that we can do a color fill. So to do that, I am going to select it again, select this Cornucopia Basket again to turn on these tools that we have, and choose Reference. You can see that Reference pops up in that layer. And then I'm going to click the plus button to add a layer on top. It's important for the color fill to work. This layer needs to be on top of the reference layer. So now we can go to our color swatches. So Color tool, and I'm going to choose this very first dark brown. It's a little bit hard to see on the camera, but this is just a very dark brown, and it's the color that I'm going to start with for our color fill. So if I just tap on the screen, that turns off. I feel like I've got stuff all over. I had a dog hair. What was I saying? So if I just tap anywhere on the screen, that turns off that color picker. Now we can go ahead and color fill. I just want to double check that I'm on the right layer. And to color fill, I'm going to tap the color circle and just drag it in. Once I can see that it's filled, then I lift up my pencil. So again, tap the color, drag it in. When you are color filling yours, I've been working on this file a little bit, so it's remembering some of my settings. But if you get this problem where it fills the whole screen, remember that you can adjust this threshold. Because my Apple Pencil is still down on the surface of the iPad, I can drag to the left a little bit to adjust that color fill. If you messed up and picked up your pencil too quickly, just do the two-finger tap to undo the last action and try again. And you can see there, that time it remembered, it didn't make me reset the threshold. So now we can go ahead, just to make sure that we're safe, we can go ahead and left swipe on the Cornucopia Basket sketch and just relock it. You could turn off the reference if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that here. It doesn't really matter. We don't need the reference at this point. So I'm going to go back to this layer 9 that we have, and let's start building our weave of our basket. I think that the first thing I'm going to do is, I think I'll choose, maybe I'll choose the maroon color, this second color here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose the natural detail just because it's a little bit of a smaller brush. So if you have the natural detail, you can grab that. And then let's just start to make some lines where the, I'm going to call it the spine of the basket is. This probably won't show as we begin to build our basket, but if it does show, then having a little bit of color back here will just keep us from having to fix it later. So it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be exactly right on the line. And for this opening for the cornucopia, we're going to end up really covering up most of this anyway. So you really don't have to do much here at all. On the screen, this looks a little bit more red than it is in person, but I feel like I'm constantly working on the cameras trying to get it to show the right colors and the right things. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and start to use that same color, and we're going to build the weave of the basket. So basically what I'm going to be doing is using the pressure sensitivity of the brush. I'm going to start with light pressure, heavy pressure right over the center to make a thicker line, and then light pressure as it goes back out to the edge. So for mine, what I'm going to do is over this top spine of the basket and over this third line of the basket. That's how I'm going to build the weave. You could do it a number of different ways. This way is just a little bit simpler, and really the what you end up with is beautiful at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the acrylic round. So remember, just clicking the brush tool, excuse me, we can change the brushes. I have my Shelly Parker ART brushes in their own folder. If you are interested in learning how to make a folder for brushes that you download, if that's something you'd like for me to teach you to do, please let me know. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's get started. I'm going to probably go through this a little bit quickly, but as you do yours, you can always pause the YouTube video and build your basket, and then come back and turn the video back on. So like I said, I'm just kind of letting it narrow at the top and bottom of each of these basket weaves. And you can probably see there as I get started the color shift that happens. Remember, both of these brushes that are available for free at Shelly Parker ART are, they have a color jitter built in. So I like that variation of color. So these get smaller and smaller as they come up to the top, to this little curl that's up here. And then this top section is the inside of the curl up here. Let's go ahead and go on to this middle section. Again, like I mentioned, you'll take much more time with yours. I just don't want to bore you to tears watching me draw a bunch of basket lines. So here you can begin to see what I was talking about before with that initial line that we did. There's just a little bit of that shows up between these. So I'm not going to continue that. You can kind of see how that would work when you get up here to this curl of the basket. It will come, these little basket parts will be added there. So for the bottom section, what I'm going to do is the thicker part to the outside edge and thinner as it goes toward that, what I'm calling the spine of the basket. If there are any basket weavers watching this, if there's a correct term for what I'm calling a spine, please let me know. So still using just, varying that thickness of the brush stroke so that it's thicker toward the outside, towards what is the outside here. So of course you would continue that all the way around to finish up the curl up here. Just again remembering just to let these get small and really delicate as it gets to this curve up here. As I mentioned before, the mouth of the cornucopia for our piece is mostly going to be covered. However, the way that I did mine initially was kind of a little scalloped detail around the mouth. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I did that. In case we end up not covering it, it's worthwhile. It doesn't take too long to add this out here. So I'm just going to do just a really quick scallop and then come back and sort of scallop the opposite way. So pretty quickly you have a pretty little detail that we can begin to build some more colors and variations on. So let's go ahead and choose the color picker, and let's go, since the top is lighter, maybe I'll start with an orange. It really doesn't matter too much. We just want to start to build in some variation of color, which really adds to the detail of the basket. So just come in and add a little bit of that color, then switch to your smudge tool. If we want to smudge with the very same brush, which is usually what I do, we can just tap and long hold. You can see the pop-up that says smudge with the current brush. So now we can come in and just soften that a little bit, blend it just a little bit. Remember with the smudge tool that it's very important to have the opacity down. So this bottom slider is the opacity. I had mine probably around 25%, somewhere in there. If you use the smudge tool and you feel like it's just doing too much, then reducing the opacity will help you. Remember, the top slider is the brush size. So the brush size, of course, still applies to the smudge tool and the eraser. So you can just take your time and have fun with blending this a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to do a couple of different colors, a couple of different variations up here. And this is it's just so much fun to relax and paint digitally, particularly on something, like all of these basket weaving that we're working on here. It's really fun to work on it and, sit with your husband while you're enjoying the deck, or sit with your fur friend and just relax and paint. It's kind of mindless, I guess, is what I'm trying to say at this point. There's not a lot of, you know, detailed thinking we have to do. I'm going to go ahead, I just clicked on the color tool and picked this third color. It's kind of a creamy white color. And I'm going to come in and add a little bit of that. Again, keeping in mind that I want it to be brighter and lighter up here at the top. So it's the same process again. I just switched back to the smudge tool by tapping it. And then I can come in and smudge. As I use the smudge tool, the pressure on the brush is pretty light. So I'm just lightly sketching over that just to blend in some of that color. And you can keep doing this as many times as you want until you have the effect that you like, until it looks the way that you like it to look. If you did too much, if you feel like you you know, lost too much of a certain color, you can come back in and add more color. But remember, we're going to be adding so many beautiful fall details to this that we don't have to have it absolutely perfect at this stage. We can get it close and then come back after we have the rest of the details in. If we see something that we want to make a little bit more improved, we can always come back. But it's so relative when you see everything else, all of the other pretties that we're going to add. You know, you realize that this doesn't have to have too much detail. So for this next section, if I go ahead and click the color picker and look at my colors, I can start to add some colors down here, remembering that I want to let this get just a little bit darker as it goes around. So I have one of the reds chosen here. Just added a little bit of that in. Again, the camera really isn't picking up the color as I see it perfectly. I'm still working on trying to get that to show better, but I think you can really get an idea of what I have happening here. So I just switched back to the smudge tool. I'm just going over that red that I just added just to blend it a little bit. And because I have the size of the smudge tool down, I can really be pretty loose and not terribly careful with just smudging that in. Go ahead and smudge this just because it's fun. We can come in and add a little bit of orange maybe to this. Even though that's pretty bright, if we just add just little bits of it. Back to the smudge tool. So I know I've said this like a million times already in this video, but don't feel like you have to hurry like I am. Just relax and have fun with it. That looks pretty good for there. I think what I might do is I might add just a little bit of that cream color, just more to the tops of these, and then smudge that in. As always, with any art that you do, the color variation is everything. Add different values of colors, add different tones of colors, and all of those steps that you make in layering the color really will add a lot to your final piece. Let's work just a little bit on this bottom one. I'm going to go back to the color picker, so just tapping the color circle. I think that I'll choose this brown color. Remember that anytime that you're picking a color from the color swatches that I've shown you here, if you ever want to adjust that at all, you can just go down to the classic view. You can see where that color falls in this color window, and you can always drag it to be a slightly different color. So even though I've given you those colors, that starting point, don't feel like you can't keep adjusting and make it what you like. I'm gonna go down to a little bit of a darker brown too. And then again, just smudge it in a little bit. I'm going to go back to the brush and darken just a little bit more down at the bottom down here. Again, to help build that roundness as it curves over and shadows here at the bottom part. And then I just switched back to the smudge tool again. To set that in. The layering of the colors, even in digital art, really does matter. And the more that you go back in and layer in more colors, the more amazing your final piece is going to be. So I don't think I've mentioned it in this video, but remember, 2 fingers on the screen. You can pinch to zoom out, pinch out to zoom in, and twist and turn and work any way that you like. So that really shows basically what I would do with the basket itself. You can do that same process around the opening of the cornucopia, or you could leave this opening of the cornucopia as it is for now, and then as we finish getting more of our elements in here, then you can come in and add more details if there's anything that shows. So the next thing that I want to do is bring in the painting of the pumpkin and the fall leaf that we did. If you haven't painted the pumpkin or the fall leaf, please go back and check out those classes. They're all here in the Procreate playlist, so they're all available for you. Mine are painted, so I'm just going to go ahead and tap out to the gallery. Please remember, when you tap out to the gallery, that is Procreate's save point. So just make sure everything is on your screen the way you want it to be. I do think Procreate has made it a little bit less of a worry if your piece was off the side a little bit, but just to be safe, before you click out to the gallery, always take a moment, make sure that you have everything okay on your screen. So tapping out to the gallery, here's the pumpkin that we did in the class. I'm going to just turn off the reference layer that I have there. And what we're going to do is bring this file into our cornucopia file. So to do that, I'm going to tap on the layers, these two squares up here, and I'm going to pick everything that is our pumpkin. So in this file, I have the stem on a different layer. I have some of these highlights on a different layer. So what I'm going to do is pick everything that is the pumpkin. For what I'm doing in the cornucopia piece, I don't need this shadow that we have here, so I'm not going to pick that. So to pick the layers that I want to take into cornucopia, I'm just going to select one and then right swipe on the others. For my file, I have 4 layers here that I'm going to take over. You might have more than that. You might have less than that. But the reason that I'm not pinching these down to merge them is because I'm not sure if in this file, if I want them to all be flattened yet. I might want to make some adjustments to this file at some point. So I'm choosing to leave them in this particular painting as the different layers. I hope that makes sense. So now that I have all 4 of those layers highlighted in blue, I'm just going to tap and hold with my finger and drag them out. Now you can see that I have 4 layers, and it looks a little scary because it takes them out of your layers list over here. Don't worry, they will stay there. I am going to go ahead and tap out to the gallery. You can see that I'm still holding these 4 layers, and I'm going to come into the painting that we've been working on. Still, I'm holding those 4 layers. Now I'm going to let them go. It says it's importing them, and there's our pumpkin. Over in the layers over here, you can see that I have those 4 layers now renamed as an imported image. So that I don't mess up and drag them separately and mess them up, I'll show you what I mean. If I select this pumpkin and I move it, you can see that I've got some of the highlight there, the stem is there, some of my highlights are up here. It just messed up my whole beautiful pumpkin. So I'm going to just 2-finger tap to undo, send it back to where it was, and I'm going to go ahead and merge those 4 so that that never happens here. An important thing to remember is in the other file I said I wasn't sure I was ready to merge those all together and have them all be one, but here I can merge them because I do have that other working file in my gallery. So there's no worry about merging them here. I hope that that makes sense. So with those 4, I'm going to put my first finger on the top, my thumb on the bottom, and I'm going to pinch those 4 together. Now they're all on one layer. If I choose the transformation tool and move it, they all stay together. In the layers, the 2 boxes, I'm going to go ahead and rename this just because as we begin to add more elements, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to keep track of, potentially. So I'll just tap it again, tap rename, and I'll just name it pumpkin. Oops, if I can type correctly. One of the things that you might want to do as you start to move things around and adjust the arrangement that we're making is make another copy or duplicate this so that you have one living in this file that's not altered in any way. So let me show you what I mean. If we slide to the left and tap duplicate, now I have two of that very same image. I can swipe to the left on this bottom one and lock it, just like we've done with some of our other layers. It just protects it. And now on this, actually, while it's protected, I think I'm just going to turn it off just so we can't see it as we begin to work with this one. So here I have the one that's not locked. If I choose the transformation tool, the arrow at the top, now I can resize it and move it where I want it to be within this file. I can also reshape it. Maybe I want this pumpkin to be one of those more kind of flat pumpkins. So I can choose distort and warp and see what gives me the look that I'm going for. I'm going to start with warp, and I'm just going to put my pencil down somewhere toward the center here and just drag it down. And I can keep kind of playing with it and reshaping it until I have it the way that I like it. If you start to do that and you just don't like it at all, just tap reset and it puts it right back where you want it, where it was when we started. So let's go ahead and reshape it a little again. I'm really just showing you the possibilities of what can be done here. We can always come back, and we will come back as we begin to build this arrangement and adjust it further if we need to. Now I'm going to go ahead and click uniform, because if I did anything here without clicking uniform, it's going to give me a mess. So 2-finger tap to undo. Now I'm back to just still that adjusted shape that I have. I'm going to tap uniform, and now I can move the whole thing around. Oftentimes I do click outside of the box to move it. That just keeps me from accidentally resizing it if I didn't intend to resize it. Maybe I will resize it just a little bit. And let's just leave it there for now. We're going to be doing lots more arranging as we go forward. Let's go ahead and repeat the same process with the leaf that we've already done. Again, the leaf we painted in a class here on the playlist. So if you haven't painted your leaf, be sure to go check out that class and paint yours. My reference picture again is still up. I'll just turn that off. And again, we want to go to the layers and we want to pick everything that is this leaf. For this one, there's just two. So I just did a little swipe to the right to turn it blue or select it. Now I have both layers that make up the leaf. I'm going to tap it with my finger and hold and drag it out. It shows I have two layers here. So back to the gallery, back to our piece that we're working on, and just let go of it, drop it anywhere. When we come over to our layers, we've got, again, those two inserted images. I'm going to one finger on the top layer, one finger on the bottom, and just pinch them together, and then tap it to rename it. I'll just name it, I think that this was leaf 3 in our, yeah, it's this leaf that's actually just painted here. So again, now that I have it here, I can click the arrow or the transformation tool and I can size it. I can choose this green circle to rotate it. I can pull it underneath of the pumpkin. So this is the pumpkin that we can see. If I just tap it and hold it to drag it underneath, sometimes it works more easily than others. So I just drug it underneath so that it peeks out from behind the pumpkin. So pick the transformation tool again, resize it, and place it where I want it to be-ish. Again, we're going to make all of these decisions more as we build our layers. But the very same way that we adjusted the pumpkin, we can adjust this leaf. So I still have the transformation tool, this arrow selected up here. I can come down to warp. It turns on that grid that we saw before. And I can actually like turn the leaf to make it look a little like it's curled up a little bit underneath of the pumpkin there. Click back to uniform, and now I can move it around to different areas. So I hope that just gives you an idea of what you can do with your pieces, particularly like these elements that we painted separately. This is why it's always so important in Procreate to try to preserve the element that you're working on so that you have a lot of design options for future pieces that you do. Even though these are painted in a different file, we can always continue to adjust them in here. So for instance, if these were to stay the way that I have them shown here, I would potentially, maybe want to darken the leaf a little bit just so that it pushed back behind the pumpkin. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as it is there, just until we get some of the other elements added in. So I think that I'm going to leave this class at this point for this part. I will be filming the painting of the sunflower. The sunflower is so fun to paint, and I'm really going to dive into the details of the sunflower because I think it's something that you'll be able to use on lots of other pieces going forward. So we'll spend a little bit of extra time painting the sunflower, and I'm going to show you some interesting little tricks for painting the wheat that make that painting go really, really quickly. So please be watching for upcoming videos. They will all be in this Cornucopia playlist, and I'll do my best to link everything so that it's all very easy for you to find it. I am seeing one thing here that I'm going to fix while we're here. Because I painted the pumpkin particularly in a class that I was filming, I didn't really go in and do as much cleanup as I ordinarily would. So you can see this little area down here at the bottom that can maybe use some touch up. So in my layers, I'm going to pick the one that's turned on, the one that's visible, and then I'm going to choose the eraser. I'm going to choose the eraser again just so I can see what brush it's on. I like to use the syrup brush generally when I'm using the eraser. So I'm just going to come in and erase. You could see there as I was erasing, it was still leaving some hints, like a ghost of that paint stroke. It was because the opacity of the brush was down. So I'm going to, while I'm using it as a eraser, I'm going to make sure that the opacity slider is all the way up to 100%. And now as I go back in to clean that up, it doesn't leave that, the ghost of that shape there. So I hope that you enjoyed this first part of this class. I hope that you'll really take your time and enjoy putting this basket together. Like I said, don't spend a whole lot of time on this opening until we get all the elements in and you can see really what's gonna show up. So have fun with this. I'll see you at the next class.